Hey, IMP Nation, welcome! IMP stands for Imperfect Masterpiece. I believe Madoka Magica has the power to inspire us with its characters who are all imperfect masterpieces, just like us. And it's through their struggles we can all learn how to improve ourselves and live happier, more fulfilling lives. If you believe the same things as me, then subscribe to join the IMP Nation, for we're a community that strives to become our greatest versions as we all learn to love and appreciate ourselves as beautifully flawed humans through Madoka Magica. Now, all of us are aware that after becoming a magical girl, Sayaka gets confronted by Kyoko and the two of them get into a fight which results in Sayaka getting destroyed. Now, it goes without saying that Sayaka losing to Kyoko is the result of not only the difference in experience between the two, but largely due to Sayaka losing her temper after being provoked by Kyoko, which allowed Kyoko to control the situation. However, what if I told you that Sayaka had an ultimate secret weapon that she could have used on Kyoko, which would have had an effect on the entire fight? And what if I told you that had Sayaka used her secret weapon, that she would have been able to defeat Kyoko during their confrontation, or at least stood a much better chance at defeating her? How would Sayaka faring better versus Kyoko affect the Madoka series as a whole? Meaning, how would the story progress after her fight with Kyoko? By the time this video is over, you will have all the answers as to how it would have been possible for Sayaka to not only give Kyoko a run for her money, which would have led to her possibly defeating Kyoko, as well as how the series would change afterwards. And as a bonus, you're also going to learn how to use Sayaka's secret weapon in your real life. That's all coming up next, so stay tuned. Hoi, hoi, hoi. We have the power to do anything. Hoi, hoi, hoi. I've got a dang nasty penis. This is Mommygasm, reporting for duty, and I shall be your imperfect host for today. Hoi, hoi, hoi. Now, have you ever found yourself having to deal with a difficult person, whether it was on the internet or in your real life? Someone who lashed out at you, aka upset you to the point that you find yourself lashing right back at them? Well, the confrontation that Sayaka had with Kyoko in Madoka Magica mirrors this type of interaction that many of us have had before in our lives. It's like we're just moving along, just minding our own business, maybe at school or work or on the internet, when suddenly a dark cloud begins to hang over us in the form of a negative person. And before you know it, you're locked into a negative confrontation with them and becoming angry as you both proceed to yell at one another. Just like in the situation of Sayaka versus Kyoko. Now, it goes without saying that once Kyoko shows up in front of Sayaka, provoking her into attacking, Sayaka loses control of herself and proceeds to strike at Kyoko, which results in the events playing out with Sayaka getting her butt kicked. Now, I'm fully aware of the fact that Sayaka is not perfect, for she is an IMP, aka imperfect masterpiece, just like the rest of us, which is why we love her, and I feel that her confrontation with Kyoko is ultimately one we can all learn from, since we all know what it's like to have this type of experience with someone. Now, in life, we don't always have control of the way that people treat us, but we always have control over how we respond to them. It is through our response to what happens is where the true power lies within. Meaning, our power in any situation we find ourselves in within our life always comes in the form of our thoughts, our words, the choices we make, our actions, our reactions. All these things dictate our future. If someone approaches you, like how Kyoko approaches Sayaka approaches you, there is always a choice you have to make and how you respond to that person. And if you choose to react to that person in the way that Sayaka did, then all you're doing is playing right into their hands and giving your power away to them because you lost control of yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you should not stand up for yourself should you find yourself being confronted with a negative person like Sayaka was with Kyoko, only that there's a better way to do it that does not involve you getting angry, which results in you losing your composure, which in turn makes you give your power to the other person and play right into their hands. Now the question is, how do we do it? Meaning, how do we handle a negative person who confronts us? Well, the thing that I always practice when in a difficult situation is PBR, which means pausing before responding. Sometimes just by pausing for a few seconds, it has been able to help me not respond to a negative person in a negative way. In fact, very recently I received a YouTube comment from someone who got upset with me and accused me of not supporting Madoka Magica, and as a result, he would go out of his way to spam my videos with comments. Now, when I first read this and saw what he was doing, I got frustrated and felt the fire well up within me, but as I was in the middle of typing my response to him, I proceeded to pause while typing just for a few seconds, and just in me pausing for a moment, it made me become more mindful of what was going on. Thus, I can safely say to you that pausing before responding can help you not react to a negative person, because when you pause, you start to become mindful of everything, meaning mindful of yourself, your surroundings, as well as what's going on in that moment, and that in turn will help keep your emotions at bay and make you better able to communicate in a thoughtful manner. So when faced with a difficult person in real life or on the internet, practice PBR, which once again stands for pausing before responding. And just in doing that, for a few seconds, you will become more mindful of yourself, and then you can decide from there if the person is even worth responding to or not. And many times, after pausing and considering the situation, you will realize they're not worth it. Then you can choose to walk away if you like. Another thing that pausing can do for you in a difficult situation is that it helps you to foster calmness within yourself. And believe it or not, just in staying calm in a difficult situation, you have the ability to change the interaction that you're having with a person. In fact, just in being calm within a difficult situation can give you the power to control the situation and lead it to where you want to go, while also staying in control of yourself. And it's in staying in control of yourself where all your power actually lies. And the best way for me to explain how this is the case is by going back to the Sayaka versus Kyoko confrontation and see how this interaction would have changed if we applied a calm mindset to Sayaka, which in essence is Sayaka's true nature, since her affinity is water, and water has always symbolized peace and tranquility. In truth, it's within Sayaka's affinity which holds her true power, and in essence is Sayaka's secret weapon, which is her mind. And it's through giving Sayaka a calm mindset I can better explain how being calm with a difficult person can affect and change the entire situation at hand. Now, just to give more context to how a Sayaka with a calm mindset would be a thing in this scenario, just think about the way that Sayaka was within the third movie, aka Rebellion, during her interaction with Homura, because in essence, a calmer version of Sayaka would be very much like the version of Sayaka within Rebellion, who was able to stay in control of herself and in essence stayed in control of the entire situation. So for the rest of this video, I will be making references to Rebellion Sayaka and compare the mindset of that version and apply it to the Sayaka that exists within the original anime. Now, how would a version of Sayaka who was calm have been able to deal with Kyoko better? This version of Sayaka would not have rushed in to fight Kyoko because she would have remained centered within herself when faced in this situation. In comparison to the Homura confrontation, this version of Sayaka, who was calm, also was more observant. And this is why before Homura activated her time magic, Sayaka, who was in a very calm, peaceful state of mind, was able to stop Homura, who essentially was about to make a move, so to speak. So you have to figure, if Homura was attempting to attack Sayaka, Sayaka would have been able to have halted the attack, because in this calming, relaxed state, Sayaka was able to react really quickly. And what's really crazy about this moment is Sayaka wasn't even looking in Homura's general direction, which meant that she was in such a calm, peaceful state of mind that she in essence was able to feel that Homura was about to use her time shield. And sometimes when you're calm, it allows you to be more observant with your surroundings. Sayaka being more calm meant that just like how she was able to be more observant in the situation with Homura, knowing when Homura was about to do something, like take an action, and at the same time she was able to, observe Homura more and who she was at that moment. Had she been faced with Kyoko, then she would have been more likely to anticipate Kyoko's attacks, because she would have been more observant and she wouldn't have recklessly rushed into a confrontation with her. And this would have meant the overall flow of the fight would have been different, because let's say that Sayaka said, you know what, hey, I respect what you're trying to say. I get that you don't think that familiars are worth it, but my perspective and my purpose in life says that I want to protect the city. I respect you, but I'm going to stand my ground and do what I want to do, because being calm and not reacting to people does not mean that you have to back down and let somebody have their way with you. The idea is remain in your center and make it very clear that you understand where the person is coming from, but you're still going to do what you want to do. And if the person decides to continue to be in your face, then obviously you have to defend yourself. So had Sayaka decided to be calm, if Kyoko still decided to try to fight her and attempted to attack her, then in this situation, it would have been okay for Sayaka to have defend herself. Now, I'm not saying that just because Sayaka is calm that she's going to automatically win this fight, because we're still dealing with the fact that Kyoko has more experience than Sayaka, but I still think that circumstances would have been created for Sayaka to have ultimately won this fight. And essentially what this means is that she would have fought Kyoko and she would have been able to observe her fighting style as well as observe her method of attack. And if she had been able to observe this method of attack in her calming state, then it would have been more likely that she would have fought Kyoko better. Because one thing to understand is that Sayaka, even though it was mentioned that Kyoko was more experienced and that Sayaka was weaker, during the original fight, there was a time period, or there was a singular moment while Sayaka was fighting Kyoko that Sayaka was able to stand her ground. It was only for a moment, and I remember this was a moment that actually surprised Kyoko, because she had this really surprised look on her face and she wasn't able to push Sayaka away during that one moment. Now, what this essentially says to me is that Sayaka had the potential to stand on her ground in fighting Kyoko despite the lack of experience and the lack of power at this point, because despite the fact that Sayaka had rushed into the fight off center because she had allowed her emotions to get the better of her because of the fact that she was frustrated, angry, and feeling very defensive. Despite the fact that Sayaka's emotions were completely out of whack, she was still able to maintain and stand her ground in one moment. Now imagine what would have happened if Sayaka had actually been calm from the very beginning and not allow her emotions to get the better of her. Now, if Sayaka was able to stand her ground when her mind was basically going haywire, you can imagine that if she had been calm, she would have had more moments in the confrontation with Kyoko, which would have allowed her